Welcome once again, everybody, to episode 2 of Terminal Vocation. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, that's nice.
I was talking more to our listeners, but thank you as well.
I live here.
So how's your week been?
My week has been good. Today in the library world, it was Poem in Your Pocket Day. So I gave out lots of poems to lots of people. Some people were very confused by that. Other people thought it was awesome.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Like, well, middle school poetry is always...
I did some middle school. I did go with Oh Captain, My Captain and an E.E. Cummings love poem. That might have been a little heavy.
A little bit much.
But a lot of Shel Silverstein.
I would think any more middle schoolers would love E.E. Cummings because it's how they text. There's no punctuation. There's no capitalization.
You know what?
Like, he was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Yeah. I hadn't made that connection, but I'll have to follow up with some kids tomorrow.
See if that worked for them.
Yes. Yes. What about you?
Well, good. Obsessing over followers. All 8 or 9 of our followers.
I was going to say, did we have 9?
It peaked at 9 at one point. It's early. We haven't really promoted yet. So I'm not worried yet.
Good.
But ask me again Monday.
Okay. Sounds great.
So well, yeah, again, happy to have everybody back. Today we're going to really be doing a sort of a deep dive, maybe not a deep dive, maybe sort of a survey overview of dating through life. Dating through life.
I wondered when I saw that in the notes, I was like, I think he's singing the song from Wicked.
Yeah, why not? Why not, right? Okay. So, but before we start that, interesting tidbit in the news that I thought was maybe worth talking about. Allyson Felix.
How about that? So Allyson Felix is the most decorated female U.S. track and field Olympian in history. 11 medals. I think 1 individual gold, several team golds with a 4x400 relay. Right.
So she has decided she wants to make a comeback and train and be at the LA Games in 2028. Now this hits us at a lot of levels. We love the Olympics.
We do. Olympics are awesome.
Olympics are great. And now
go ahead. She's also 40. I mean,
yeah.
That's in our rearview mirror. But I was like, wow, 40. But by some, it's in our rearview mirror by a lot. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot that I'm sure people will talk about here. Should she be doing this? Should she not?
Yes.
From a track and field perspective, I really don't care because I feel like all I want U.S. gold.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, if she's one of the 2 or 3 fastest qualifiers for the U.S., then send her. I don't care how old she is. If she's got a chance to win, I'm up for it.
Yep.
But I think it's an interesting topic from a marriage and family perspective.
Yes.
To say, okay, because her husband was a track and field guy too.
Okay.
I think they ran similar events.
Yeah, that's
now he's
right.
2 years older than her. He's, I think, 42. Kenneth Ferguson. So I assume they're both more or less retired.
And they have 2 young...
2 kids, I guess 7 and 2.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So both seemingly retired. And now there's a conversation, I assume going, I'm not saying they're not having conversations about this, but there's conversations going on about, I think I want to go back and do this again. And it's not something that you can do halfway.
No. Now, to be clear, you say retired from running, but I mean, she's running all these companies and
she's fan.
Yeah, I saw she was a maternal health advocacy person for rights of women in healthcare in terms of being taken care of as they need, and then she started the daycare centers, like the areas at the Olympics. She lobbied for those.
Right.
So I mean, really a big family gal.
Right, which is, I mean, if you're an Olympian and you have kids, you want them there. You want them, to be at the event. But obviously, there's days that you're practicing, you're training,
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. I remember when was it the mono bob, right? The single bobsled, the woman that won that. She was, an older woman too, and her kid was there.
That's right.
To come congratulate her. I mean, it's so neat to see that sort of family aspect to that. But I was kind of also thinking when I saw that she was doing that about us. And, when I was about 40, maybe a little before I was 40, right? So when our youngest kids were about 4 years old, maybe 4, 6, maybe, no, 4, I started a master's program.
Yeah, you did. That was nerve-wracking at first.
Right. And so, we had little ones in the house and 2 older ones who were getting busier and busier, right? Kids get older and they've got more stuff. And that was a conversation that we had to have. And I think that's important for not just young couples, but, really any age couples to say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something that's going to change the dynamic in our house.
Right. How do we make this work? Is it possible? Can we do it?
Right. And then a couple years later, I graduated and took like all of 18 months off and then said, hey, I'm thinking about this diaconate thing and, doing grad school again to some degree. And then as I'm nearing the end of that, you had started looking at getting your master's degree and started, I think, while I was still finishing. So we were both basically in master's level education at the same time. Now, our kids had steadily gotten older.
But they were still home.
They're still home. Mm-hmm. And so I think the thing that was key for us and sort of bring up here is this was not, hey, I'm doing this. Mm-mm. This was hey, what do you think about this?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I feel like it was, what do you think about it? And then when we got on board all 3 times for all the different programs, then it was, how do we make it work? Who takes, I think we shifted. I was doing finances for our family budget and stuff, and that shifted to you when I went into to my master's program because you were finishing up the diaconate. So yeah, it's just kind of a change in responsibilities and what nights was I studying and that type. And then, all of those conversations are probably happening in the Felix household. Is his last name Felix? I should have known that.
I thought it was Ferguson.
Yeah, I think they have different last names. Yeah. But in their household, these conversations have no doubt ensued already. They've already solved it if she's in training, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hopefully so. And figuring out then how this is going to impact the kids, Right. And one of the things that I think we also talked about was, okay, there's an impact on the kids negatively in terms of, someone's away.
Time away.
But there's also a positive impact. An example it is showing, hey, education and pursuing excellence and pursuing your dreams is something that continues.
Yeah, and that it matters, and that we make time as a family for things people want to do, if at all possible.
If possible, yeah.
Right? Yeah, no, this is fascinating. I'll be curious to see some interviews with
to see how this goes.
Allyson Felix.
And to see, what comes down. But I think just, sort of to sort of put a bow on this, I mean, I think, these sorts of things just require conversation, require, and I guess the last maybe hot take that maybe we would have is a little bit of, especially for those young kids, they need somebody who's around.
Yes.
Right. They need someone who's around. And we've seen that work, for us, when I was working, when we had kids, you stayed home, you were primary caretaker, but we have friends who have gone the other way. We've got, one of my college buddies, his wife was an engineer and he was a teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
When, they kind of saw, hey, we think life is going to be a little bit better if someone's home with the kids. And he said, well, that only makes sense if it's me doing it, and they've got a great family, and it worked for them. And so this is not a, forcing a, traditional masculine, feminine thing. It's just what's good for the family and what's good for the kids.
It's not one size fits all. It's who's got that ability at the moment, who's got the gifts for different, either vocations, avocations, that type of thing, like where those lie. Like, right. I mean, it's just got to be a discussion between both partners to figure that out. Yeah. It's amazing.
All right. Well, so good luck, Allyson. We're rooting for gold. We'll be cheering you on. So let's dive into dating through life. Let's talk about dating. So let's set
actually the table a little bit in terms of lexicon, because as you mentioned, 40's a little bit in our rearview mirror. So the terms that we used when we were dating just a few decades ago are maybe a little bit different, right? So just kind of looking, or talking to our kids or other kids that I know from youth groups. So there's kind of different phases, right? So I think dating is kind of the same, right? If someone is saying that they're dating, that kind of implies we're going steady. Maybe we would have used the term going steady, but maybe we would have said I'm dating somebody. It was kind of used to mean that there was an exclusivity to it, boyfriend, girlfriend. But before that, I think we would have said like, oh, I'm going out with somebody. Right? To kind of mean that, well, we're going on dates, but we're not dating. So I think the difference now is they would say, I'm talking with somebody.
Yes.
So we're talking. And so, we'll try and use that maybe as we talk about some of these different phases. So let's start there. Let's start with that kind of talking phase and kind of everything that means, because in that phase, I think it's important that someone approaches that part of their dating life or their just talking sort of life without this burden of saying, I'm practicing for marriage.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because the types of dates that you're going on when you're in this phase really aren't geared towards permanence. They shouldn't be.
Correct.
Right? If anything, they're probably more a discovery of who I am when I'm with a member of the opposite sex. How do I act and who am I looking for?
Well, and yes, I think those questions. And then also on the date, I felt like as the female on the date was, how does he treat people? What has he planned an activity for us? If he asked me out, what are we doing? How does he handle paying when that hasn't been discussed? And I think more of just, for me, it was an observation. I didn't always do this successfully because I dated for a long time, but to try and observe impartially, do I like what I see? Does he tip his waiter? Is he kind to the valet? Is he whatever, those kind of human interactions that you have. How does he treat me? How do I feel when I leave? So I think, yes, it's sort of a combination of how me, the person, feels, and then how I'm observing how this person I'm dating, I'm on a date with, acts.
Yeah. No, those are all, important observations that you're just saying. I'm deciding on a basic level of tolerance of this person before I'm deciding whether I want to,
good word,
dive deeper into, an exclusive or committed level of relationship with.
Tolerance is good.
This is not a phase of dating that I did well.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, if you want to interrupt and talk about anything other than how I did it poorly, that's fine.
I think it's also hard because I think ideally you date a couple people at a time to compare John to Bill to Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know that ever happened to me, maybe more than once, where I had more than one person to compare them to at the same time.
It sounds like a nice idea.
It does. I wasn't that popular.
And then, most of us are like, I'm just happy I can get one person to say yes.
Right.
Let alone multiple. I had, I feel like in my early years, the first couple people that I dated, I was over exuberant and went, 0 to 100, and was probably very clingy and very uncomfortable. And, we're boyfriend, girlfriend now, right? And it just,
pushing things along faster.
Poor young ladies.
Yeah.
And then, right after, right around the time we started dating, I had just broken up with someone who I had been going out with for 4.5 years. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to jump into something serious. So you and I went out on a first date, and I went out on a date with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a fun story. Our kids love this story because I went out with her, and for a host of atrocious reasons, I'm sure, I couldn't stop talking about my date with you. And she had known me beforehand, and so she knew I had just broken up with somebody. And
Sure.
And so if I'm being generous to myself, there's probably something like, well, how are you doing since then? Oh, great. I just wanted this date with a woman, and she's fantastic, So even when I was trying to do that, I didn't do it very well.
Yeah. I think there is a feeling of being in love with being in love.
Yeah.
And you're not really in love, but you think you're in love.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, I don't know that I was really it's meant to be after our first date.
Mm-hmm.
I liked our first date. I loved our first date.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was probably an initial infatuation more so than I'm going to marry that girl.
Sure.
And that's good that infatuation sometimes carries us through to keep discovering them and get to a place where that sticks. So I think that's important.
Yeah. I think after I'm 5 years older than you. And so I had dated longer, had many more bad dates. And I shouldn't say that. I dated very nice guys, but I was constantly putting this, like, I want them to commit to me, but I won't commit to them, kind of poor thing on them. So poor them. But I think after that date with you, I thought, oh, this was different than any other date I had, in a good way. But again, I also did not have that feeling. Sometimes you hear of people that are like, I knew that we were going to get married after our first date, and that wasn't true. But I thought, oh, something's different. Like, we had better conversation, connected, that type of thing. So yeah, there was something there.
Yeah, there's a tangible something there.
Yeah.
So the other thing I kind of want to touch on in this phase before we move on is kind of a difference generationally, because our means of talking, which is what people would call this nowadays, is we didn't have texting.
No.
We didn't have social media. I guess there was AIM, AOL Instant Messenger.
Yes.
There was a little bit of that. But for the most part, it was either a phone call or you're face to face.
Sure.
And I think there's something good about texting and connecting, but I think it needs to be held in very carefully, in the sense of, if I've been texting with someone for 5 weeks, does that mean we've been talking for 5 weeks? Was our first date the first text that I sent you? Or are dates really the times that we, are
see each other
face to face?
Right. It's interesting, I think, generationally, and I'd be curious to see a study on this, but thinking about our parents' generation or even our grandparents' generation that did only have, face-to-face to rely on, maybe letters, maybe phone, depending, especially I'm thinking of like wars and people being away. But what a different style of communication that is. And that's nothing against modern phones and texting. And I certainly use all that and appreciate all that. But I do think texting, to me, is less emotional and more transferring information. Like, I'm driving home, I can get milk. What else do we need? Right. Versus trying to get to know someone during texts. But that's just maybe our generation showing.
Yeah, I think it is certainly generational to some degree, but I think there's also something important about the reality, the tangibleness of being together.
Yeah.
Even if hearing a voice becomes very different than seeing words on a screen. You get emotion, you get tone, you get those sorts of things from it. And I think you learn more about a person when you hear those nonverbal cues, if you will, than you would otherwise. We've watched a documentary with our kids called The Dating Project.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. It was a woman who was a professor at Boston
College, I think.
And in one of her classes, her assignment to her students was they had to ask somebody and go on a date. And she had rules about what a date could be. I believe it was, just the two of them. Whoever asked had to plan it.
Pay for it.
Had to pay for it.
Hour or less.
It should be an hour or less, right? So it was, coffee was,
yes.
Perfect for that. If it was a meal, it should be, probably lunch, not dinner.
Right.
There could be no physical, no physical relationship at the, maybe a hug, but, no kissing.
No kissing.
Nothing else. And so what I thought was great about that I kind of think fits in with this talking kind of phase, is it gets away from the idea that this date has, you said earlier, like, I went on a lot of bad dates, and I know what you meant, but a bad date is still a great opportunity for discovery.
It's valuable information.
Right. And the more bad dates we go on, the more we learn about ourselves and the more we learn about who we're looking for. And the better our terminal relationship will be.
Well, I think for me, I was very much a people pleaser. And so for a long time, this sounds terrible to say this, but into my 20s, I didn't know what I preferred. And that sounds silly, except if I'm always taking the temperature of the room and trying to figure out what other people want, then I don't really know what I'm looking for, or in a person in particular. I mean, maybe I know what I want to order for dinner, or I know what kind of job I want to do, but in that type of thing. And so I think exactly what you said, going on some of those dates that ultimately didn't work out, I shouldn't call them bad dates, that ultimately didn't work out, showed me, okay, this is not the kind of man I want to hang out with, or I didn't feel this way. Or sometimes it made me look at the fact that I was the one who was hesitant about commitment, and that maybe that had been a very nice guy, but I was pushing him away for some reason. So I think you're right. The self-examination is probably really important at this point in dating. I mean, like I said, observing the other, but it's really learning about yourself to determine what you want.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into dating.
Okay.
Right?
Exclusive dating.
What exclusive dating, what we sort of properly mean, right? You and another person are exclusive. So this gets a little closer to what we might call marriage practice, right? We're trying to see if we're compatible at a deeper level. Could I see myself with this person forever? But I think that the initial part of this phase, we have to be careful with that idea of it being marriage practice for a lot of reasons. The most obvious is definitely we don't want to get into a cohabitation. We don't want to get into, waiting for marriage for physical relationships is, always something we're going to endorse here. But even beyond just those things, like, we should be tapering into how intense we are in terms of what we're expecting the other person to do. I mean, let's take a fake timeline where we say, someone is talking for 2-3 months and they decide, I think I'd like to be exclusive with this person. Well, if I've known you for 2-3 months, I shouldn't be expecting you to run every decision in your life by me.
Right. We're not talking coordinating plans for the future at that point. I think that's still more of the observation. Okay, now we're exclusive. What does this feel like? You're in that shallow end of the pool there.
Yeah. And I think that other sense of being willing to let it be undefined.
So tough sometimes.
But it's okay sometimes to let things be a little uncomfortable until someone kind of can't take it anymore and forces the DRT, right? The DRT is the define the relationship talk.
Right. It's
one or both persons are like, I can't handle this anymore. What are we?
Forces is such a strong word.
Suggests.
Has the,
convinces.
Right.
Right.
I think there comes a point where, you do need to know, am I allowed to go out with Billy? Or am I only going out with you? Okay, great. I'm only going out with you. And then at some point, where do we see ourselves in the future? I think you transition from sort of observing to then, as the person you're dating is talking about the future, do you see a place for yourself in it? Maybe even if he doesn't even specifically maybe have to mention you in his future, but okay, good. He's thinking of getting a job in the same town you're in, or he's thinking of moving to the Antarctic and working on the weather station there. That's very different, right? Like, I don't see a place for me in that scenario.
I would say typically, like, the start of exclusive dating probably is a DRT.
Yes.
Maybe it's an easier one in terms of somebody is willing to sort of pop the question, if you will, in the sense of like,
yes,
hey,
right.
We'll
date each other only. Fair enough.
Right. But I think there's other occasions that could float a little bit. Like, at what point does someone say like, oh, well, I'm surprised that you planned something for Valentine's Day that doesn't include me. Mm-hmm. Right. Those would, maybe come up, as talking points.
I think I wasn't good at these parts because I would get to the point where I was dating somebody exclusively, and then I'd be like, hey, there's a big family wedding, let's go. And then I would find myself suddenly single by the wedding. Then I think I leapt into that as opposed to helping someone graciously along or reading the room and being like, oh, we're not at that point yet.
We're not at meeting the family.
We're not at meeting the family at a wedding.
Yeah,
which
is
a weird.
Intense.
Yeah.
But at some point, you get to a point, exclusive dating, its natural end, other than a breakup, is probably engagement. Mm-hmm. And so there's some conversations about the future that probably should be happening even before you get engaged, right? Because I think once you get engaged, there's a danger of inertia. And we'll talk about that in a minute, I think. But I think there should be some basic life questions that you should be talking about together before then.
You should, at this point, have probably found out before you're engaged if the person is interested in having children, what they'd like to do for a living, how they'd like to spend their life, where they'd like to live.
Yeah.
Because geography can be problematic if you couldn't leave an area for a certain reason.
Yeah. If one person is very open to their work relocating them, the other person's like, I could never live that far away from my family, then
right.
Then
some stuff to discuss.
Yeah, irreconcilable differences, right? So I think that's. What do you think is the right amount of time to date before engagement?
I think, of course, that's going to be different for everybody. Anytime we say a number, it's going to be different. But I do think going through the seasons with somebody, every season is a good thing. But then we could point to a bunch of people that never did that and are very happily married without that. But that's kind of, for me personally, I feel like once around the calendar is good.
Yeah, I talk to couples sometimes who didn't date for very long. In counseling people at the parish, right? For every uber romantic story I've heard of the guy who proposed on their third date and they've been married for 50 years plus, those are nice. I think those are outliers. And I think there's probably far more people who thought that they were the exception to the rule and tried to go that way and were divorced a year later.
What's the movie? Don't be the exception. That's always the exception to the rule. You always have one friend who, has this story exactly like you're saying. It's the one where he tells her to pay her bills on time, and they're in Seattle. And anyway,
is it Sleepless in Seattle or
no? But
no,
anyway.
it was just based in Seattle.
Yeah,
we'll look it up. We'll put it in the show notes so we can think of it. So
he's just not that into you. Sorry.
Oh, that's a good one. I think that going through the seasons is probably a good rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. I think that's right. Sort of a year. You could be nearing the end of that year and saving money for the ring and getting ready and
Okay, so we're
people like certain dates, right? Like, oh, I'm going to propose on the anniversary of our first date. Okay, fine. So you're engaged. So next phase, right? So, I think what's really important to remember here is that while you're engaged, it's important to keep dating.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Because I remember coming home, we were engaged a couple days, and I was coming over to my mom's house, and we were like, oh, we're just going to enjoy being engaged for a little while. And I come in the front door, and there's a stack of bridal magazines.
That was how I was enjoying being engaged.
That is what, no, it was...
I was enjoying it very much.
But the point being, very quickly, the minutia of the wedding
it takes over.
Can take over that phase.
Yes.
And I had a couple that I was working with last year, great couple, but they were thinking about relocating, or they kind of needed to relocate. Like his job was going to be about an hour and a half from where they were living, and that was just a stupid commute.
Sure.
And so while they're engaged, they're looking at houses and communities. Yeah. And so they were telling me, like, it just feels like every time we're together, all we're talking about is houses and neighborhoods and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that's all necessary and important. And but I said, go take a walk and like Google icebreaker questions, and just, you know, go out and ask her, like, who's your favorite elementary school teacher?
Sure.
Or, you know, what's on your bucket list or something, and just have a conversation that departs from anything associated with a wedding, so that you get into the habit of getting to know somebody constantly.
Yeah. I can remember us saying, like, okay, we're going on a date tonight is about just us being together, not wedding details, not plans, that type of thing. Yeah, no, I think that's important. I mean, it goes with the dating through life. You should be not having wedding talk, but having, I'm going to say marriage talk, but guess what I mean is conversations that are building a foundation for your future, getting to know that person better and working on the future, not just a day in your life.
Yeah, if that day is all consuming. And it's fun. I mean, all those things are fun, right?
Yes.
But it's more fun to have 25, 50 years of wedded bliss than not. So prepare for that as well. I think the last thing that's important about the engagement phase, and again, we talked about inertia, is not to think that you're already done, that you've already, that you're at a point of no return.
In the engagement,
right? And you know, we get into DJ and photographer deposits and you know, reception venues and all those sorts of things. And I remember you telling me that your mom, while you were getting ready, said, "Are you sure about this?" You know, and this is
getting ready for the wedding.
You know, you're putting on the white dress. And I remember at first, you know, when I heard that, thinking, she never liked me. But as I matured, as I started to understand marriage more, like, that is, you know, even though we already felt like we had committed to each other, you know, like we talked about last week, like, there is a reality that happens when those words are spoken.
Yeah.
And it is far, far better, if there's any uncertainty, to walk away. It's cheaper. Like, if we're being honest, like, it's probably better to forego some of those deposits than to try and pay legal fees to unwind a marriage that goes badly if you're not sure about it.
Well, and her saying that, I mean, because she did say that, and she said, no matter what, you can step away at any point up to this time, and it's not a problem. And it was not a statement about you at all. But just the reality of marriage. Like, you're sure. And I was sure. But
no, it's good.
But it took pressure off.
I mean, she wasn't intending this, but it's good sacramental theology, honestly. Yeah. Like, this is the time to know. And it's why they used to say, you know, if anybody has any reason why they should, you know, we handle that a little bit different. But okay, so vows happen.
Yep.
We're married. And now we sit on the couch and just grow old together.
No, that's wrong. Actually, I will say, I think you were very good at this, especially after we had children. I think I was just tired and exhausted from being home with them and things. But I think you were always like, hey, we need to go walk down to the coffee shop. We need to get out for the day. You know, let's get a mom over. Let's get a parent over to babysit, and we can head somewhere, or planning every 5 years we would go away for the weekend. But just making sure there was time Or when we didn't have much money, we'd stay home. We'd put the kids all to bed, and we'd have bought ingredients to make some kind of like fabulous chocolate mousse or special dessert just for us.
Right. Yeah. Dating in, date nights in were so important when, we, I mean, that first, year or two before kids, right? We're double income, no kids, like
easy,
no problem. You want to go out to dinner? Let's do it. Mm-hmm. You want to go take a weekend, at the beach? Let's do it. Fine. And that's probably good enough in terms of starting to build a habit of saying, hey, we need to keep doing those things. We need to keep connecting this way. But even when the kids are there, just saying, okay, let's put them to bed and let's have a night where, 5 nights a week we're probably sitting there binge watching whatever show it is that we're watching. But let's have a night where that's off and we're actually just talking, communicating.
I don't think 5 nights a week we did that, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Those, and the nice thing about baking was even when it was bad, it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
It's like, well, it's more of a soup than a cake, but it's still got a lot of sugar in it, and we're going to eat it.
Fabulous.
So yeah, I think sort of summing up all of that, right? Like, I think this idea of dating as just this constant rediscovery of the person that you're in love with. Mm-hmm. I think, how can we grow together? How can we keep, becoming new people, but that are still compatible with each other, right? We're gonna change. We're gonna grow over time, but hopefully we're growing in a way that we're not growing apart, but growing together.
Well, so that goes back to, like, you always usually read one of the books that I read with Well Read Mom. You pick a book and read, and then we usually talk about that. We read some similar stuff.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on a website. It might have even been like a men's health magazine or something like that. But it was like, occasionally read the last book that your spouse just read. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's a good idea. Just kind of understand the air that they're breathing. You know, and I think that's, a good thing. So so keep dating, keep getting to know each other.
I think it's a good idea.
All right. So I had one fun question for you before we sign off this week, because it is that season. May is upon us.
Yes.
It's prom season.
Oh, no. Oh, I know what you're going to say.
How was your prom?
My prom, I think proms is just kind of a little bit of things sometimes people have to slog through. Like, I had a very nice prom date. I was with all my friends. It was lovely, but I think I had built it up into this fabulous thing from 17 magazine. I know that's a way back machine, but it was just going to be like the perfect night. And it was really fun. And if I had just gotten rid of it having to be the perfect night, it would have been a really fun night.
Yeah.
It was in my own way.
I'm gonna save my prom story because I've got some.
You have quite a good one.
Great content there. So we're gonna save that for another night.
For another time.
But I want to talk about a trend that we've even seen with our own kids.
Yes.
The prom-posal. Mm-hmm. So, Deacon Vo hot take.
Okay.
Anti-prom-posal.
Yeah, I thought you were going to come down on that side. I know. I think they're very clever. So I got to give them that. I think like the one at the ice cream store was cute where he put it in the flavor. That some kid did that. That was very cute. I thought, it's a lot of pressure, it seems like to me. What's your take? Like, why don't you like it?
I think a couple of things. I think just taking the idea of a proposal, which a wedding proposal, if there's a little bit of theatrics associated with that, good, because that should be happening once in your life. And,
right.
It's a story that you're going to tell forever. But I feel like the prom-posal has really become less about a real connection between two people and doing something that's special between those two people, and really about, can I do it a little bit bigger or better than the other person who posted on their Insta or their Snap about their prom-posal. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a one-upsmanship with it that I think overtakes the actual sentiment that should be there.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think maybe my concern with it is that it escalates. Like, we're now using this word. It's not a proposal, it's a prom-posal. I get it. But we're sort of elevating prom, like talk about me thinking it was going to be the perfect night. Oh, good gravy if we'd had prom-posals. Like, gosh, it wasn't right, or he didn't get my best side in the picture, or, all the other things I would have had to obsess about.
Yeah.
So I do feel like you're sort of trying to elevate it to this proposal where I sort of want that to be its own thing off by itself and not imitated.
Yeah.
I guess I'll know.
I would have a lot of respect for a young man that went to his girlfriend or whomever and said, look, I just want to ask you to prom because I like you, or I think we'd have a good time, and I don't, because I think there's pressure on the guys to make it bigger and better. I think there's pressure on the girl.
Yeah, what
so
if
like you turn that down when all the cameras are running?
That's embarrassing.
You look
mean.
Yeah,
you look mean.
So I don't. Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, when I proposed, I was pretty sure what answer I was going to get. I wasn't worried
Good.
that I was going to get turned down, right? So
yeah.
So dating hot take: promposals are dumb.
All right.
So curious to know what everybody else thinks. If you've got an opinion, pro or con on promposals or anything else that we've been talking about, send us an email, terminalvocation@gmail.com. Happy to hear from you. Happy to hear anything you'd like us to talk about, more or less. Just happy to hear from you. You've been listening to Terminal Vocation, a VoFan production. I'm Deacon Mark, along with my wife and co-host Erin. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
See you later.